Hello, and thank you for joining Helaman's Army today. Today I've got a wonderful special guest, actually, two of them. I've got Sarah Mindelli from her channel that she's doing. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
And I've got my wonderful wife with me again, too. And we just wanted to collaborate together and learn a little bit about Sarah and talk about her channel and her testimony and all the awesome things she's doing. So,
Alrighty. So I'm Sarah. I I grew up in Brazil, and I was a member of the church ever since I was born. My family is sort of like a pioneer in that area, because there were many members in Brazil at that time,
mhm,
and so my grandparents were held so many callings throughout my childhood, because the church was growing. So he was like a branch president, and then state
right,
president, and all those callings, as until it got to the city where we actually lived, because all the wards would be like so many multiple cities until it grew more and more. So I've always I've always been taught the Book of Mormon and the Bible and the scriptures, and all of those things have always been um it was they were true as much as the sky is blue, like that they
right.
were just normal for me. And some of the and it's funny sometimes when I'm making a video that I'm gonna say something, for example, like I'll refer to the Godhead. And to me, it's always been clear that there's God, and then there's Jesus and the Holy Ghost, and they're
Right.
three different beings and all that. And I've always assumed everybody thought that too. And so there are many things like that that I don't even know that other people don't believe and they haven't never heard. And sometimes I'll have some problem with that, because I just I don't know what other people believe and what they don't.
Sure.
Um yeah, so that's always been part of my life. But when I was 15, my mom and I decided to move to Utah. My mom was going to university. My mom is a pharmacist, and she was doing some
Oh,
work in the lab at the University of Utah, and also learning English. Um, but my mom had divorced my dad when I was one, so it had been just us forever. And we came, and it was really tough at that time, because she had to pay tuition, and we and eventually we ran out of money, and we had to go back to Brazil um, for about a year. And I was 15, and I had a lot of trouble making friends because I
right,
didn't speak English, and I wanted to go back to being a teenager with all my friends.
right.
And so I left before my mom. I went back by myself, and I lived with my grandma for a little while, and then my mom went to Brazil as well. Um, but we didn't for some reason we didn't fit anymore. Like everything that I imagined it was going to be the same, and it wasn't. Like I didn't connect with all my friends anymore, and um it just felt weird. So we decided that we wanted to come back again. And but at that point my mom had married a longtime boyfriend, and so we came by ourselves, and then he was going to come afterwards, and my mom was pregnant at that time. But it turned out that he never came. And it was just us, and she was about to have my little brother. And that was a really really tough time for us, because um I had to work a lot. I was going to high school, but I had to work to pay our bills and stuff.
Right.
And the looking back, it looks like a lot of pressure for a 16, 17-year-old. And I worked jobs with a lot, like, people who are way older than me. I worked a lot of restaurant jobs, and that made it so I ended up um connecting with people who weren't in the best path. And I at that time I just felt like I could never be as spiritual or good enough. And
So, I mean, well, yeah.
um
So, like, I mean, age 16 and 17, I can't imagine having to try to support my family at that age. I was I don't want to say I was horrible, but there's no way I would have been able to do that at age 16 or 17. So that, I mean, it's
And and I think if I didn't have to, I probably would say the same thing. Yeah, I couldn't, but because there was no other option, I just did it.
right.
And looking back, it looks really crazy because I feel like my life is so much easier now. And I actually was doing pretty good. Like I was taking 2 AP classes. I was taking AP English and AP US History, and I was working, a lot. So it looks really crazy that I was able to do all of that, but because I was hanging out with not the best people because they were my friends from work, and
Right.
I just felt so inadequate, and like I would never measure up, and I ended up making mistakes at that time. I just like, oh no, like there's nothing, everything's lost. But and then I actually did YouTube, like I did a makeup blog at that time, and I was doing pretty well. And I started like collaborating with makeup brands like Urban Decay and stuff like that. And I was going to move to Los Angeles to keep working on that. And my parents were like so scared, like,
Right.
But I was like, no, this is working out for me. I'm doing well. I'm going to go over there. Then they wanted me to go to college. They wanted me to go to BYU and, but I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm going to do this. And out of nowhere, I decided I had a friend who was going to BYU, Idaho. And I decided that I wanted to go there too, out of like just one day out of the blue. And it was interesting because my parents didn't have money to pay for me to go to college. I had to pay for everything myself. And I was down. I was down with it. I'm like, okay, I'll go. And I was still in that mindset that I wasn't good enough. Like I didn't know if I wanted to get married or have children.
Like Satan's really good at putting that thought into our heads, like that. It's that despair that you're never going to add up, or you're never going to match. You're never going to be able to do it. I think it's like his main thing he uses is just to try to tear us down.
Yeah. And like it doesn't matter, even if you could do a little thing that would make things better, you shouldn't even bother because you're so bad.
Right.
And so I decided to go, and I grew up, I didn't have many like good marriages to look at growing up, even though like my grandparents were members and they, I didn't have many other examples. And actually, I don't know how much you know about Brazil, but it's a very sexist culture. And I don't say that lightly because everybody's, so crazy about that these days.
Right.
But it is very sexist. And I didn't like the marriages of my family, and I just always felt like I didn't want to get married because I don't want to be somebody's slave. And yeah, so but at BYU Idaho, I took the religion classes, and I started to see that no, actually this could be really good. And my mom also, she got remarried to an American man here. And this is who I'm referring to when I say my parents. This my mom and my stepdad. And it's really funny that you actually look a lot like him, like your features and like how you dress.
Really?
So when I saw you on the video, I was like, oh yeah, this is a good guy. I can trust this guy.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I'll send you a picture of him so you can see, like it's very similar. Okay. Yeah, so after I saw that her marriage worked out and I didn't need to marry somebody who was going to be angry and blame everything on me, I started to open my mind to that reality. And then I had a lot of trouble with roommates at that point. I lived in an apartment with 8 girls.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was a great experience at school, but I had a lot of trouble at the apartment. And sometimes it would involve the police and things. So it was bad. So there was a semester that I left. I went back home. I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. Like I I'm not going to go back. And I just drove back to Utah to where my parents were. But then again, I had an impression that I had to go back. And so I went back in the next semester, and that's where I met my husband. I studied software engineering, which might come as a surprise because it looks like I'm so tech averse. Like I don't know anything about technology. And looking back, it seems stupid that I chose that degree because obviously it's not for me. But it's important that I did because I never would have met him otherwise. Right. Because I met him in a class that I was failing, and that's the only reason I passed was because he helped me. So then we actually got married really fast. We met in May, and we were married in September.
Hey, that's great. No, that's awesome. So should we tell her?
Go for it. Go for it.
So I don't honestly, and she'll probably like make fun of me later. But okay. I don't exactly remember when I proposed to my wife. Like I remember it was after Christmas vacation.
January 12th.
Okay, January 12th. So it was on January 12th, and we got married on February 15th. Yeah.
Wow.
So we
had dated for several months.
We'd been dating since like October.
Yeah.
And so
September.
Yeah. So like I think we were like I remember sitting in Subway like trying to plan out the wedding, the reception and everything. And my wife was like, you know what? I don't care. I just want to be a good wife. And I'm like, well, let's just go get married. And I said it jokingly, and she's like, no, let's do it. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah. So,
wow.
So we're like, all right, let's go.
We called our family and said, hey, we're getting married in 2 weeks because Idaho Falls Temple's closed. But we're getting married in 2 weeks. If you don't have a temple recommend, don't come because we're not doing anything afterward. Yeah. And it was, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so you said
you just wanted to be married,
right?
Yeah, you wanted someone to come home to, someone just to be with all the time, not have to leave at the end of the night.
Right. So when you said
that is so wonderful.
When you said you got married fast, I was like, oh, hey, we did too.
And I never meet anyone that has it's about the same amount of time. And everybody, when I tell that story, they're like, wow, that was crazy. Like, that could have gone really wrong.
It's not crazy at all. It'll be good. You'll have a great marriage. There's going to be times when you like just don't like each other. Like there's going to be times when you like come home and you're like, oh, really?
I have to deal with you today.
But but you know what? Like it'll turn out really well. Just like I think it was David O. McKay. I'm pretty positive it was David O. McKay that said something along the lines of any two people that live the gospel of Jesus Christ will have a successful marriage. And so that's like, stick with that.
Yeah.
I'll find that
and
quote.
No marriage
I'll
is
find
gonna
the
be
full
easy.
quote and I'll send it to you.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, I love those. Especially because I wasn't ever sure that I wanted to get married. So it was pretty crazy. And like to my parents, it was fine because my mom had been married 3 times. So she was like, it's okay. Like you can't do worse than me. I don't know. So my mom was really supportive, especially because she had never seen me with anyone else like I was with my husband dating. So I had never had like a really serious boyfriend before then. But when I was serious about him, she was like, no, this is it. Like she knew. But his parents weren't so thrilled about it because he's from Mexico, so they didn't get to know me really well.
Gotcha.
And, for them looking at, from the outside, like from being in a different country, like he was on his own here, it looked really bad.
Right.
So I totally get it why they would be like that. And also our original plan was actually to get married in December. And I actually scheduled our sealing, without telling him. I really wanted to get sealed in the Salt Lake Temple. Right. And it was about to be closed for the renovations in 2019.
Oh, so wow. I was like, we have to do it now.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to miss it. I want to get one of those big rooms. Right. So I scheduled it and I'm like, if he changes his mind, that's fine. I'll just cancel it.
Wow.
There you go.
I mean, we had talked about getting married, but we'd agreed that we would, but I didn't tell him that I was going to schedule it. And it was really funny because when I never scheduled one before, but, they asked for the, and my husband has actually 2 different birth dates because in Mexico, his mom was trying to get him to school a little bit earlier than he was born. So she put down that he was born in September 1st, but his birthday is actually in October. So they asked me for his birthday and I gave him the right date. And they're like, nope, not pulling up. Like, are you sure you should be doing this? You don't even know his birthday. Yeah.
Fascinating.
But we went, I don't know if you know, but in BYU, Idaho, there's tracks, you know, like, so we had different tracks. So I left, I came back to Utah to work because there weren't many jobs in Rexburg. And my husband didn't want to be there by himself. So he's like, we could get married. And I was like, yeah, but I wasn't endowed then. And I was like, I'm not getting endowed on a rush. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, we can just be married. And his family didn't like that we didn't get sealed right away. And that's why. But it was so perfect because we got married in those 3 months where we were just married civilly. He was able to teach me about, you know, the atonement, and that he was kind of like my missionary, teaching me things that everyone assumed I knew. And I had always been afraid to get endowed because I thought I was inviting condemnation in my life. I was like, I'm not good enough for this. I can't do it. And he never once, you know, judged me or anything. He's just always taught me. And by the time that we were getting close to our sealing date, I was able to get endowed, you know, with confidence. And it was just perfect that he was able to be there. And that's why, too, we didn't really mind like getting married fast because we just wanted to be married. We didn't care about a party or anything. All I wanted was a pretty dress, and I did like my wedding dress.
Important things.
Yeah. So how's it been so far being married?
Oh, it's been wonderful.
It's awesome.
Yeah. If I'd known it was gonna be this easy, I would have never been scared. I think.
Sorry, how long have you been married?
5 years.
Oh, 5 years.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. See, my wife's good. Okay, awesome.
I'm not very good at math, so yeah, I would never have assumed you knew.
I'm an engineer, so I should be good at math, but I have to think about it.
You have to think about simple math.
Yeah. You want me to do like, you know, calculus? We're good, but addition and subtraction.
What kind of engineer?
I'm a nuclear engineer. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
I work as a mechanical engineer, but I work at a nuclear power plant. So anyway.
Wow. I could have, you know, another time. I have a lot of questions about nuclear energy.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a video of how nuclear power works, and you can just.
Yeah, I'm actually so passionate about this because with this whole, like, you know, net zero agenda, I'm so passionate about it because I grew up in the third world. I know how much energy is important for poor people and how that just hurts poor people, and nuclear energy could fix that.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely can.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. I want to jump back really fast. Something you've said a couple of times so far is that you don't feel like you can measure up, or that you're worried about what other people think of you a lot. Yeah. And that's something that's really, I shouldn't touch the microphone. Something I'm really passionate about. I think we were married probably 6 or 7 years, and I remember, because I used to be very worried about what people come to my house that's not clean, and you do the, and my mom did this, you did the dash. You're like, oh, the bishop's coming over. And so you run and you throw all the dirty dishes in the oven and clean off all the counters, and all the dirty socks get, you know, just thrown in a bedroom with the door shut. And so when we'd been married for like 6 or 7 years, and I think someone called and said they'll be there in 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, I started freaking out. And he's like, why do you care what they think of you? What they think of you has no bearing on your salvation. What they, their what is the word I'm looking for?
Their opinion doesn't matter.
Their opinion doesn't matter. And so he's like, you stress yourself out so much over something so silly. And I was mad at him at first. I'm like, well, this is how I feel. Don't justify that. But the longer I thought about it, the more I'm like, I'm going to make it my mission to try not to care what other people think of me. And it is incredibly hard to do. And I struggle with it all the time. And I ask him to remind me a lot. If I get that way. And so I try not to. My friend was coming over. My mom was visiting last week, and I had a friend coming over to meet her, and she's like, "Do we need to clean up before they come?" And I said, "Nope, we don't." Because if they are going to judge me for how dirty my house is, I don't want them to be my friend.
Yes.
And so
I actually...
Go ahead.
Oh, her video froze. Oh, you're back now. Sorry. Your video froze for a second. What did you say?
Oh, I just said go ahead.
Oh, okay. And honestly, none of the stuff that we stress over of us being good enough has no bearing on our salvation, because that's what Jesus is for. So you're worried about, and you're not the only one. All women and a lot of men, I think, we all deal with this, that we're not feeling good enough, that we're not going to be measured short, or whatever the term is. But it's not bearing on our salvation.
And our worth isn't changing based on how clean our house is.
Right.
And I've had an interaction with my husband like that too. And he's like, yeah, if these are people who would judge you on how clean your house is, maybe you don't want to be friends with them.
It was really interesting. I'll get off this in a second, but I try to teach my kids that, because I have a daughter that has a little bit of anxiety. And I'm like, who cares what they think of you? You have to just be your own person. And we were on our way to a Relief Society activity on Tuesday nights, and the young women were invited. And I walked out the door. I'm like, oh, I'm in my pajama bottoms. I'm like, and we're running late. And I'm like, I got to go change. And she said, Mom, who cares? Do they care what you wear? And it was really hard, because I had to bite my tongue and get in the car in my pajama bottoms. But because I want to teach her that it's okay. And so I couldn't go in and change and be like, sorry, I'm, do as I don't do as I do as I say, But,
right.
Yeah.
No, and that's a really interesting example, because I think about that all the time. My daughter's only 3, but she already expects me to do the things I tell her to do. And I keep thinking about the story of the Stripling Warriors, and how, their moms taught them their whole lives that that's what you do. But every time I listen to that story as a mom, I think, could I actually be okay with that? Because if I taught him, I can't just go back on my word now. I have to let him go to war and die, because actually, what would make sense to me would be like, no, you're gonna stay here. Your dad's gonna go.
Well,
you're just a kid.
It's hard to be like, okay, I have faith that I taught my kids enough that they can do it on their own, that they can go out and they can fight these great battles on their own. And that's scary as a parent.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and one of my great things is when your kids teach you, or your kids, we talked in our last, when we did a video together, about how our kids kind of helped us to go to church. And our kids remind us that it's okay to wear pajama bottoms, and our kids help us to do these things that we've taught them. And when it turns around and they're helping us, pretty amazing.
No, and when you said that, I thought it was so cool that you guys, were open and honest about that, because so many people will be like, no, I can never say that. That's wrong. Right. But that happened to us too, especially because when I had my first daughter, it was 2020, so we weren't going to church. And it was good for me, because I had a tough pregnancy. The first pregnancy was way worse than this one, so I wasn't going much anyway. But after that, it was really hard to get back to the rhythm of going every Sunday. And even now, I am really tired. I don't want to go anywhere. But my daughter loves nursery, and she gets so sad if she doesn't get to go. So it's definitely the encouragement that we need. And I hope that we can instill that and they can keep going. But I expect that we'll have a little pushback as they get older. But yeah.
So what was it that got you to say, I'm going to do a YouTube channel now? So I know that when you started this, because I've watched quite a few of your videos, actually. I haven't watched all of them yet, but I know that you were just doing like a mommy videos, and I haven't watched any of those yet. But so what caused you to make that transition to go from videos about being a mother to videos about sharing the gospel?
So I had never watched any real religious content online because I was too afraid that I would end up hitting, anti-Mormon stuff.
Sure.
And I was like, my faith isn't strong enough to withstand this. I can't do it, can't risk it. And my mom has always been really faithful. Like and my mom has always known like the scriptures really well, and I never felt that I did until recently when I realized I actually do fine. But I always felt like I wasn't, especially because my family were always so strong, and everybody expected me to. Everybody looked up to me. Nobody expected that I didn't know this, didn't know that. So I was too scared to watch religious content. But then my mom started showing me some channels that she liked.
Right.
And some of them were simple, but they were the ones that spoke to me most.
Yep.
And I felt that, I really relate to this. Like, and not that I, disregard the scholar content and all of that, but I feel like I don't connect with that as much yet. Maybe I will.
There's something really powerful about the everyday member who goes to church, just does their job and does what they're asked to do and fulfills their calling. They don't get a lot of praise or a lot of accolades or whatever. They just go and do. And, they're those who are no less serviceable, right? And there's something really powerful about their testimony and really amazing about just the everyday member. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. When I run across those YouTube channels that are not followed by very many people, I follow them and I listen to them because it's so much different than the really popular, the popular channels that have all the graphics and all the sounds and all, whatever. I'm just a normal person with a camera that just loves the gospel, right? And that
absolutely.
And so there's something really powerful about that. So when I ran across your channel, I was like, oh, another one, yay! But it's because even though testimonies are very simple, it's powerful.
Yes.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Hugh B. Brown. He was a member of the Quorum of the 12 back in the 50s and 60s.
I do, but
he gave a talk at BYU called "God is the Gardener," and he talks about this currant bush that he cuts down. And he's like, "I'm the gardener here," and then God comes along and cuts him down, and he later recalls this statement: "God, God speaking to him, saying, I'm the gardener here." And it happened to me one time as well. It was actually right after my wife was she had leukemia. She was diagnosed in 2012, and then the summer of 2013 we went on this little trip because she beat leukemia, so we went out together and went on this trip, and we were at her parents' at her mom's ward, and one of the sister missionaries got up and bore her testimony, and it was a very simple testimony, but it was a very good testimony, and I just thought, oh boy, you've got so much to learn, and then I had that same thought, I'm the gardener here, and I'm like, oh crap. And so ever since then, I've really begun to just to pay attention to everybody that bears their testimony, because everybody has something that I need to learn, and so that I just pay attention because it's important to listen to people. Anyway.
No, absolutely. I growing up in Brazil, I never had many friends who were members, but a lot of people are very Catholic or evangelical, and those people are very passionate. Some people are very passionate about their faith, and even when they're kids. So in Brazil, there were so many more converts than I see here. So all of their testimonies are so they're brand new and they're so strong. And I love that. I've always loved that. Yeah. And to see, the relief that they feel when they find the gospel.
Right. It's really fascinating. I mean, one more story and then I'll let you go on.
No, go ahead. No worries.
So I grew up in Idaho. I grew up in Idaho Falls, not far from BYU, Idaho.
Oh, yeah.
My wife went to BYU, Idaho when it was Rick's College. And I think you were there during the transition.
I was.
Yeah. So.
Oh, with Elder Bednar.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then we got married, and then we moved away from Idaho. And recently, in the last 3 years, just came to Texas. And I was in the elders quorum one day, and the elders quorum president said, "Hey, how many of you grew up in the church?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." My hand went up, his hand went up, and like one other guy's hand went up, and that was it. And all the other men in there had joined the church later in life. They were all converts, and I was like, "Holy cow!" I have never, like, it kind of blew my mind, because I was like, I've never actually been in a ward that was the majority converts. It was always people who grew up in the church, and so it was just kind of a like, oh wow, it's just this mind blowing.
And some of them have amazing testimonies for being converts. I mean, just because you're a convert to the church doesn't mean you have a smaller testimony or a weaker testimony. Right. I was born and raised in the church. I was in Oregon. There's not as many members, but I have a very strong testimony. My testimony is very simple when I get up to bear my testimony on Sundays, because I don't have the words to express at all how I feel, and I get combobulated in my head, and so I don't feel like I can say them. And so I tried a lot of times. My testimony is like a child's testimony at church on Sunday. I like to bear my testimony. I know the church is true. I know that Joseph Smith is the restoration of and then just state a couple of things that are really close to me, and I say amen, because that's me, and that's okay, because I like who I am, and so does my Heavenly Father.
And that's plenty, and that's powerful.
I think she's okay too.
and it's hard, because my husband's really good with words. He's really good with his words, and so I'm like, I can't express myself. So I'm like, you know, but I have to get up there, because we're talking about being examples for our kids. I need my kids to feel like that it's important, and it's okay to get up and bear your testimony.
Yeah, whatever. So we have our daughter is like, no, hold on. No.
She's almost 14.
No. So I've decided that it's just like shenanigans. The whole thing is shenanigans. So every time she goes up to bear her testimony, she looks at one of us and she's like, "You gonna go with me? Are you gonna go if I go? You have to go if I go. If I go up and bear my testimony, you have to go up and bear your testimony." So half the time that I go up to bear my testimony, it's because my daughter was like, "Hey, Dad, are you gonna go up there? If you go up there, I'll go up there." And so anyway, that's goes back to
that worked out. Yeah. No, but I totally get you, Cher, because my husband is also the one that's got the words, and he's the one. I always say that like people get to know me through him. Like he's the word pianist now. So everywhere I go, like when people talk to me, they're like, "Oh, so you're the wife of the pianist, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." Yeah. And everybody likes him better because he's really friendly. Like, not that I'm not. It's just he's just better. Like, I connecting with people. And I actually, when you were saying about the words, there's the first video I made that was religious was related to this Q&A that Elder Bednar did,
right?
Where in the very, very last little bit when he's bearing his testimony, he says, "The longer I serve, the less satisfied I am with words, but I pray that the Holy Ghost will bridge the gap." And I thought that was like the biggest thing for me through that whole Q&A, because that's how I feel too, that sometimes the Spirit can communicate to us things that we can't ever put into words for other people to understand. But it doesn't mean that it's not there, and it doesn't, it's not as strong or marvelous and powerful.
Amen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter as long as anyone who has a testimony and they speak, the Spirit will come. And it doesn't matter if it's a simple testimony or some sort of a complex testimony. Matter of fact, the more simple they are, the more childlike faith they are, the stronger the Spirit is when it shows up.
And that actually gives me much hope, because if I had to rely on myself, I don't think that it would go very well. No. And ever since I started, I've been thinking about Enoch, and how the Lord is like, go, and he's like, everyone hates me and I can't talk. Right. So but he's like, no, I got you. Like you can do it. And I because I know that the Spirit can bridge the gap, I just do whatever I feel I need to say.
I think it's wonderful that you've had that fear of not being able to speak, and you get on here and you do this YouTube channel and you have all of the backlash. I've been surprised at how much negative there is out there. I recently found out that there are churches that have classes about how to talk to Mormons. Like,
Yeah.
Really?
That shocked me. And this was just last couple of days we watched this video of. Go ahead.
No, and I've made the point a couple times. If you listen to some of my videos, you'll hear me say we don't talk about you. It's because we don't go to church to talk about other churches. We go to church to talk about Jesus Christ. We go to church to build our testimony, not to tear other people's faiths down. And that's the whole point. And so when you do get that negative feedback from people, sometimes you read it and you like. There was one time I was feeling really snarky, and I was on the edge of making a video just making fun of everybody, and then and then I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I can't
The
make
purpose of your channel is not.
like the purpose of my channel is not to make fun of people and not to make fun of their comments and not to make fun of their religion. My purpose is to build our religion and to build the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to build the gospel, the restored gospel of Christ on the earth. That's the purpose of my channel. And so when you do get that negative comments, first of all, I have a whole long list of words that automatically put comments into the held for review section.
No, I should do that.
It's totally worth it. But there are certain phrases that people say that really just should trigger like that I'm arguing against you type of statement versus the I support what you're saying, or even the I don't agree with you, but I think it's great you're doing what you're doing, and that there's a totally different spirit, right? And so
I should get that list from you because I have no idea what to put in there.
I'll email them to you.
It's been amazing and just I don't know if I talked about this last time, like with you guys doing these YouTube channels, how much it has enriched our family. Because there's lots of conversation within our family, and my kids are. It helps all of us to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to speak about my religion more often. I'm going to promote testimonies and how important testimonies are. And so it's been amazing. I don't know if you've seen that with the discussions that you have with your husband, and it just promotes more gospel discussion on a regular basis, which in turn helps the testimony and helps him to keep going with this YouTube channel. He spends a lot of time on it, a lot of time. But it has been so worth it. So worth it.
No, absolutely. I didn't have nearly as many gospel discussions until I started talking about it with my mom and with my husband now. My mom was a little worried for me because she was, obviously she would be. And I was a little afraid that I would be confronted with things that I couldn't dispute. But I realized I never have to debate anybody.
Right.
So even when somebody, when somebody comes up with something, sorry,
I was going to say, you don't have to dispute with anyone or argue with anyone. There's who gave that talk? I see his face. Is it Brother Corbett or Brother Corbin or brother? Anyway, I'll send you a link. But there's basically 5 questions that you need to answer. And then there's a whole bunch of questions that are just never ending that people will just come up with that just really don't change your testimony at all. But the 5 questions are really, is Jesus Christ the Son of God, and did he atone for our sins? Is the Book of Mormon the Word of God? Is Joseph Smith the prophet? Is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints the true church on the earth today? And then there was another one. But I'll send them to you. I'll send you that talk. It's really good. It's really good to listen to. But once you have those 5 under your belt, those are your primary questions, and all the other questions are secondary questions, and they can go on forever and ever, and you can spend the rest of your life trying to answer secondary questions, or you can just say, look, this is what I know. I know that this is true, and
leave it at that.
And that's your foundation,
right?
And when I was starting, I was talking to my mom about this. That like, I actually realized that I'm a member of the church, and I want to be an active member, not because everything that I've ever learned was just, oh, this is so nice and comfy for me. I like this.
Right.
This actually just ever since I was little, knowing that I would live forever filled me with existential dread.
Right.
Like I was always terrified of that. It was like, it's never going to end. And I was so scared ever since I was little. And to this day, it feels a little bit like I'm trapped. I don't really know how to explain it. Maybe it's because now we're bound by time and I'm like, stuck in that. But ever since, like, there's other things that I look at that and I'm like, I don't know how cool I am with this, but I trust God. He would never do anything that I, wouldn't be good for us. So it's not that everything is sounds amazing to me, and I love it, and I'm 100% down with this. So because there are things that I don't really like, I don't really understand this, but I have faith. It just tells me that it's a choice. I'm making a choice to stay true and to do these things, and it's not.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It does come down to a choice. When you die and you go to heaven, you still have a choice. Like if you find that you don't like what's gonna happen, or you don't like this world, there's choices. You still have a choice. God's not gonna make us do anything.
Mm-hmm. And I also realized, because as a little kid, this is gonna sound very morbid and crazy, but when I was a little kid, right before my baptism, I learned that I don't know if you've heard this, but probably you have, that Joseph Smith. Yeah, you definitely heard this. That Joseph Smith saw the celestial kingdom, and he's like, even that one, you would want to die right now and get over there. And it wasn't that like my life was sad or anything, but I was just like, I'd be cool to go back to be with God right now. Yeah. So after my baptism, I was like, be really cool if I just died after my baptism. And I could just immediately over there. And it seems so silly that I didn't understand that, that would be bad at that time.
Well, I totally get it, because I mean, sometimes you're like, oh, this is hard. I just want to be done. Like, just pull me out. Like, pull me out, coach. I'm done. But then you stop and you realize, well, wait a second. So we teach a celestial gospel. Like, if I want to achieve a terrestrial gospel, or even a telestial gospel, I could just go do with other things in my life. Like, I don't have to worry about the church, but then I have to know that I'm consigning myself to that future, right? But we teach a celestial gospel, and so we know that not everyone's going to get into the celestial kingdom, not because we don't want them to be there. We want everyone to be in the celestial kingdom, but simply because they're going to make choices, or they're going to choose to not be. But we know that if we're able to go through the challenges of this life, and to meet the challenges that are given to us, and if we overcome, like it says in Revelation chapter 3, verse 21, I say this a lot, that it says that it's Jesus Christ. He's kind of speaking to John the Beloved, and he says, "Those who overcome will sit on the throne of God with me as I sit on the throne." And so you have the potential, you have the divine potential to sit upon the throne. And if you're sitting upon a throne, that means you must have a kingdom. And if you have a kingdom, that means that God has entrusted you with the ability to participate in the creation, which is huge. And so basically, it's embracing all the goodness and the glory of God, and allowing that to overcome your natural self. And it's hard. It's really hard.
Well, I think that's the whole point of, not the whole point of doing these YouTube channels, this is the whole point of sharing the gospel. This is amazing, which we know all these people are gonna go to the celestial kingdom, right? And but the potential that they have, teach them that they can have this great, glorious opportunity. Yeah. So that's these YouTube channels, all these people that are doing these YouTube channels, you guys, getting out there and sharing that this is a possibility to people. And you do get a lot of negative feedback, but you reach a lot of people.
Right.
And even if you just reach one person, how amazing is that?
And because I didn't go on a mission, I feel like this is kind of my mission too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So even if if I have to take the flack from all these people who had nothing to do with this, but if that one person has heard it, even if I never find out about them, Like that's worth it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yep.
And it took me a long time to understand that the plan of salvation, it's not that we're going to get there and the Lord's going to say, no, you didn't actually, you were almost there, but you didn't quite make it.
Right.
Like it's not that. It's all about our choice and how we live. In President Nelson has been really clear about this recently, that we're choosing right now the kind of life we're going to live.
Yep.
And we're not perfect, but we're already living a kind of celestial life and sort of that progression. So yeah, and it's been interesting to me to learn recently that not everybody maybe not everyone wants a celestial glory. Like, because for me, it's always been obvious, like, that's the highest one. That's the one I want. Yeah. But I am understanding that maybe other people might not want that.
Right.
And
exactly.
I don't know why, but that's, they have their agency.
Right.
They're free to choose.
Right.
And I want to be able to be free to choose what I want. So I want everybody to be free too.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know this channel, but there's this man called David Alexander.
Yeah, I've listened to a lot of David's.
Yeah, and my mom found out about him, and I started, he documenting his conversion and everything.
Right.
And I love him. He's so like darling, and I love his videos where he sings. He's so cute. And I realized, like, and he has said this before, and I've talked to him on an email and stuff, and he lives in Utah now. That he's like, even especially you guys who have known this forever, we need your testimony. We need you to get out there. And I realized, like, maybe I got something to say. Maybe it will benefit somebody. Yeah. So I decided to do that. And what's been really funny is that this content that I've been making now has been so much more fulfilling to me than anything that I've done before. Yeah. And before it felt like, oh, I have to edit this video. Right. Yeah. But now I'm like, oh, so excited. And I get on to see, because at first, after I record a video, I was like, that was awful. I'm sure it's terrible. But then I go and I watch it and I'm like, I don't remember saying this.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. It's been really good for me too. So I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. So that's how it all connects. That was I talk so much.
No, that's good. We got there. So, okay, I'm going to ask one other question. So the videos, this is actually getting kind of long. Yeah, we're at 48 minutes. So.
Oh, I'm glad you're keeping track, because I don't.
Well, the software's telling me. Anyway, so one question: if there was one thing that you could tell the whole world and they had to stop and listen to what you were saying, what would it be?
That you're a child of God and God has a plan for you. This life isn't all there is. That's the belief that has held me together on my worst days.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. That's great. I love that.
I don't know if you expected more, but I feel like that's it. That was the one. If I could only say one thing, that's it.
Awesome. Well, like you said a lot, and then all of a sudden it was a very short. No, it was really good. It was a really great message. I love that. That's perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to encourage everyone who watches my channel to go out and check out Sarah's channel. I'm going to put a link in the description of the video so they can go and check your channel out. And also, hopefully you'll get a couple subscribers from my channel. But I know that there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to hear your voice, and you're going to speak to them in a way that I don't or other people don't. And that's the point. It's just really wonderful to see that you're out there.
And that's why it's so important to have all of these different channels, because everybody's got a different thing to reach to different people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting because there is so much content that the church has produced over the years that we could talk about General Conference for years and years and years and not cover it all.
Yes.
I actually counted up the number of General Conference talks from 1971. If you take all of the older General Conferences from 1971 and that are just in the Gospel Library app, and you read one general conference every single day, it would take you over 11 years to read all of them.
Wow.
So I mean, there's just that many. And then you take in stuff before 1971, and it's just there's so much.
And then there's BYU,
yeah,
and all of those devotionals.
Yep, absolutely. So anyway, yep, keep going because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
there's just so much.
Thank you so much for your encouragement, and I loved the first comment that you made on one of my videos, because I don't know, I try to be really honest when I make a video, and in that video I said I feel stupid that I don't know this.
Oh no.
And you were like, no, studying the basics is the best. It's great. You just gotta keep going. And yeah, that was really great. And it encouraged me a lot because I had just gotten so much hate that week.
Yeah. No, the principles of the gospel, just if you don't know what else to talk about the very basic principles of the gospel, because those are the most important. So stick at it.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
and
so
thank
normally,
you for being willing to do this.
Oh, absolutely. I love talking to other people. It's like one of my favorite things. So I would rather do that than talk about stuff by myself, because I feel like I'm talking to a wall. So it feels a lot better. And I don't know if people are listening anyway. I mean, I get views, but I'm like, I don't know how many people actually listen to that. But anyway, normally when I have somebody on, most of the time I end with a prayer. Would you like to say it, or do you want one of us to say it?
If you could say it, that would be, I would like that. Yeah, either one of you. Yeah.
Okay. Our dear gracious Father in heaven, we're so thankful for this wonderful day. We're thankful that we were able to have Sarah on and to connect with her and to discuss the gospel with her. We're so thankful for her testimony and for her willingness to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. We ask that would bless her and her family, and that she will find the time and the energy and the effort not only to raise her children, but also to support her husband. And we ask that thou would bless her husband, that he will have the time and the energy and effort to be able to support her in her continued efforts in sharing the gospel through YouTube. And we ask that thou would have those who need to hear her voice find her, and that the algorithms will be able to direct people towards her as they are needed to hear her. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.